Hi everyone, welcome to another session on productivity and TPM or Total Productivity Management. The modern management is becoming increasingly cost conscious, and some costing approaches have emerged recently, like business process re engineering, just in time approach, value chain analysis, and whenever we mention about cost management is more concerned about the industrial productivity. It aims at maximizing productivity, controlling cost, and eliminating wastages. In this way, the organization can provide more value to the customers. What is known as productivity? Productivity is an index of efficiency and it shows the effectiveness of the individual or the combined factors that have been used in producing goods or services. It is a key to prosperity and it acts as an economic measure of output per unit of input. Here, the input includes all kinds of raw materials, labor, capital, building, plant and machinery, components, etc. Whereas output means the ultimate product or the end product. Productivity simply aims at maximization of output by the most economic use of input and elimination or minimization of wastage. Let's have a look on the definition of productivity. According to Peter F. Drucker, productivity means the balance between all factors of production that will give the greatest output for the smallest efforts. In the words of International Labour Organization, that is ILO, productivity is in the deepest and broadest concept. It may be taken to constitute the ratio of available goods and services to the potential resources of the group, community, or the country. Productivity shows the relationship between output and input. Though productivity is measured by the ratio of output and input, increased productivity is possible through minimization of loss and reduced cost of production. By this way, productivity can also be expressed as a ratio of loss to the total quantity used or manufactured. In short, we can say productivity is equal to output divided by input or gross income divided by gross expense. When all the outputs and inputs are included in the productivity measure, then it is known as total productivity. And when the productivity measures that use one or more inputs or factors, but not all factors, are known as partial productivity. A common example for partial productivity is labor productivity, which is expressed as output per hour. Production and productivity. Even though the terms production and productivity look the same, it has a huge differentiation between these two terms. Production is the outcome of the various factors of production. It is the volume, value, and quantum of goods and services produced during a given period of time by a worker, enterprise, or an economy. On the other hand, productivity is the ratio of output to input. That means it represents the efficiency of resources utilized for production, where production is an absolute concept. Understanding the concept of productivity seems to be very simple, but it is not that easy in the measurement of the same. There are certain reasons for difficulties in measurement of productivity. Some of them are total or overall productivity, interdependence of factoral productivities, and general disagreement as to the measurement of output and input. Total or overall productivity can be a reason for that difficulty side of measuring the productivity. That is because an increase in productivity of one factor may be counterbalanced by another and the real picture cannot be obtained. Interdependence of factoral productivities. The productivity of one factor may affect the productivity of another factor. That is, the productivity of labor sometimes affected by inferior quality of material and defective tools. So, this interdependence of factoral productivities can be another strong reason. Then comes the general disagreement as to the measurement of output and input. Where a firm produces variety of articles or products, it's quite difficult to measure the productivity of the whole undertaking due to the differences in the volume of individual products, the differences in the quality, and the degree of contracting differences. Moreover, where there is a fluctuation in price level, the productivity measured by monetary value may not give the correct picture. In order to overcome all these difficulties, there is only one alternative method. That is, both the productivity of individual factors and the overall productivity of the business must be measured at regular intervals. We can use any of the following ratios or relationship expressions in order to understand or measure the level of productivity. That is, output divided by input, or total cost plus net added value divided by total cost, or gross income divided by gross expenditure. Let's have a look on the measures of productivity. Measures of productivity can be classified into two: factoral productivity and overall productivity. Factoral productivity is the productivity of individual factors which contribute to the overall productivity, and it can be measured in the form of labor productivity, material productivity, and machine productivity. Whereas the overall productivity deals with the total output and total input factors of an organization. Factoral productivity is just a part of overall productivity of an organization. Let's deal with these two productivity measures one by one. As already mentioned, under the category of factoral productivity, we have three subcategories, that is labor productivity, material productivity, and machine productivity. First of all, let's have a look on labor productivity. Labor is an important factor of production, and thus it's quite important to determine or measure the efficiency of labor factor. Labor efficiency can be measured by way of two measures, in terms of hours and in terms of money. If we are going to measure the labor productivity in terms of hours, we have to find out the relationship between the following factors. Labor productivity, that is output per man hour, can be measured by taking the ratio of total output to total man hours, or man hour per unit of production can be computed by taking the ratio of total labor hours to total output, or actual time compared with the standard time can be computed by applying the ratio of standard time for actual output to actual man hours, or finally lost time percentage can be identified by taking the ratio of man hours lost to possible or actual man hours multiplied by 100. In order to measure the efficiency of labor in terms of money, we have to make the following computations. That is, labor productivity is equal to sales value or cost of output divided by number of workers, or we can take the ratio of direct wages to sales value, or we can take the ratio of indirect wages to direct wages, or we can take the relationship of direct wages to the number of units. So these two are the subcategories of measuring labor productivity, that is in terms of hours and in terms of money. The second important factoral productivity element is material productivity. When the material cost constitutes a major segment in the total cost of production, then it's quite important to measure the material productivity. And basically, the material productivity shows the relationship between material cost and the number of units produced. Or we can say material productivity can be computed by way of taking the relationship between direct material cost to its production cost. Or material productivity can be computed by way of direct material cost divided by sales figure. From the wastage of material point of view, material productivity can be computed by taking the relationship of waste or scrap to the total material consumed. Last important element of factoral productivity is the machine productivity. When in factory most of the work is done with the help of machines, the proper utilization of machinery is considered as a very significant thing. And this can be identified or located through productivity of machines. And for the same, any of the following ratios can be applied. For measuring the machine's productivity, the relationship between output and actual machine hours can be taken. In order to find out the activity percentage, actual machine hours is divided by planned machine hours into 100. And if we want to focus on the lost time of machine, then we can take it or compute it by taking the relationship of machine hours lost to possible machine hours into 100. As we discussed, the first category of productivity was factoral productivity, and now the second one is overall productivity. Overall productivity can be measured by using the ratio of total output to total input. When the cost is adopted as a convenient measure of productivity to avoid the difficulty arising out of diversity of methods of measurement of units of input, the ratio between the total output and the total input expressed in terms of money will be cost of output divided by cost of input. The overall productivity can also be measured by applying the formula profit divided by sales into sales divided by capital employed, or in short we can say we can take the relationship of profit to the capital employed in order to compute overall productivity of an organization. Productivity index. When output in relation to the input is expressed mathematically, then that is known as a productivity index. It simply refers to the ability of a firm to produce output. It is the average measure of the efficiency of production, and it is a device of expressing the ratio between input and output of a resource in numerical values. Productivity index can be viewed as the volume of output of goods compared with labor employed, or as the profits made compared with the capital employed. Thus, productivity index is equal to output divided by input. How this index value has been interpreted? If the productivity index value is more than 1, then it indicates a higher level of productivity. In reverse, if the index shows a value which is below 1, then it indicates a lower productivity. Now we will discuss about the misconceptions or misunderstandings about productivity. On the way to become more productive, we often make some mistakes which will lead to misconceptions or misunderstanding. Taking break from work is bad. That kind of a feeling or that kind of a belief is part of such a misconception. Some people believe that taking away from their work means less productivity. But this is purely a misconception. Actually, taking a break means we are taking a time to recharge ourselves. Taking regular breaks allows us to refuel, recharge, and stay on schedule, which leads to a better productivity and a higher efficiency in the work we do. The next misconception is regarding sleeping only for a few hours. We have been misguided by the stories of successful people who used to spend little time for their sleeping time. But reality falls light on the fact that if we get the right amount of sleep, then we will wake up feeling more refreshed and we will have a more productive first hour that translate an entire day of productivity and achievement oriented one. Last minute working on a project or constantly working under pressure will definitely lead to more stress in our workplace. So most of the work gets done under pressurized situation. That element is also treated as one of the misconception. Actually, working under pressure leads to more amount of stress that will again lead to health and relationship problems. It's always important that we have to keep our mind and body stress free in order to increase the level of productivity. The next misconception is that multitasking will save time and will improve productivity. We used to hear a lot about those persons who are multitaskers who could efficiently manage a lot of tasks at the very same time. Multitasking is seen as a way to save time by getting two or more things done simultaneously. But the reality is that if we want to accomplish our goals, we accomplish one goal at a time. We should focus on one goal at a time. Multitasking is not only bad for productivity, but it also creates some kind of stress for our brains. So, this is purely a misconception. The next wrong belief is that work should be quiet or work should be carried out in silence. But there are certain energy boosters which will have a positive impact on productivity, particularly for certain roles and responsibilities. Listening to music while working is one such a thing. Even though it has been considered as a multitasking, the right selection can make us feel more energetic and improve our overall mood for the workplace situation. The last but most significant misconception to be rectified is that a belief of productivity in association with office space. That misconception is that the productivity will be high if we work from office space. But this is not actually true. Research findings or plenty of studies have been stated that even if we work from home, then also the productivity will be having its highness. Office costs can also be saved if we work from home in a very productive manner. So, these all are some of the misconceptions or misunderstandings regarding productivity. And to get a fruitful range of productivity, all these misconceptions should be rectified or eliminated. Now we will discuss about how the productivity can be improved at workplace. The first one is provision of incentives to workers. Workers will always be happy if they receive wage or non-wage incentives. Wage incentives comprises of increased wage rates, remuneration, bonus, allowances, etc. Whereas non-wage incentives comprises of workers' participation in management, job security, appreciation for work, etc. These incentives will make a worker more satisfied and that will definitely lead to an improvement in his contribution towards the productivity of the organization. The second one is provision of adequate health, safety, and welfare measures for improving the working conditions in the factory. If the working conditions have been improved, then that will be leading to lesser accidents and improvement in overall productivity. Next one is the application of scientific management. Scientific management techniques, including time and motion studies, will be leading to time savers or cost savers, and also the removal of wastage and inefficiency. So, the application of scientific management will also be leading to a higher productivity of workers as well as machines. Next one is the application of simplification, standardization, and specialization. The product cost can be reduced and the productivity can be enhanced systematically if we apply the process of simplification, standardization, and specialization at workplace. Next one is the scientific selection and training of workers. The selection of the right type of workers for a particular job will definitely lead to increased amount of productivity. The next one is application of cost, quality, and production control. Various techniques of cost management, quality control, and production control are very much helpful in increasing the productivity level of an organization. The next one is the industrial research. Application of new methods of production or new techniques of production will be greatly helpful in increasing the industrial productivity as well as the total production. This will be made possible only if we undertake constant industrial research and experimentation. The next one is proper plant layout. The layout of machines and equipments should be in such a manner which kind of ensures smooth and unrestricted flow of production operations and processes. So a proper plant layout will definitely lead to increased total volume of production and productivity. Final one is effective material handling and internal transport. An effective and efficient system of material control and internal transport is immensely helpful in enhancing productivity. Thus, productivity can be improved by applying any of the discussed methods here. Our late Prime Minister Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri mentioned, higher productivity means more efficient use of all type of resources in employment, using them to produce as many goods and services as possible of the kind and quality most wanted by the customers at lower and lower cost. It's in essence a multi-pronged mass attack on waste on the one hand and optimum use of all instruments and tools of production on the other. Every sector of an economy is benefited as a result of increased productivity. Let's have a look on some of the benefits of productivity. Higher productivity reduces the cost and increases the profit. This in turn results in more bonus and dividends and plowing back of large amount of profit for internal financing. Higher productivity results in more bonus and amenities to the workers, and this will ensure a healthy relationship between employer and employee, and it will lead to a reduction in labor turnover. When the enterprise's efficiency is improved, manufacturing cost will be reduced and the customers, they will be in a position to get quality products at reasonable or cheaper rates. And higher productivity or increased productivity creates confidence and goodwill in the organization. It also ensures more revenue to the government by way of taxation. Increased productivity improves the standard of living of the people and raises the per capita income of the nation. It also helps in increasing exports as well as international trade related activities. These are some of the benefits of higher or increased productivity. There are certain factors which hinders the growth of productivity. Let's have a look on reasons or causes of such low productivity rates. If employees are not skilled or semi-skilled, they can't produce more. So lack of skill is one of the reasons for lower productivity. If one doesn't cooperate with others, that is, the lack of cooperation among employees has been treated as another reason for lower productivity. If the technology is not modern and updated, then also the productivity factor may get affected. Lack of training is also one of the reasons for poor productivity. If the relationships between employee and employer are not good, then the productivity of the employee may be decreased. If employees are not committed or dedicated to their organization and his work, then the productivity may not be up to the mark. If the concentration and focus of the employee is not good to his work, then also the productivity will be decreasing. If the employer does not cooperate with the employees, then the productivity will decrease. If the environmental condition of the organization is not good or if it is unfavorable, then also the productivity level may be less or decreasing. If the manager doesn't see and take steps to implement the most productive ways to complete the task, then that will lead to a poor management and lower productivity. Ineffective management practices decreases a company's productivity in several ways. Companies can increase their productivity by streamlining and automating processes to decrease the work needed to complete the task. Outdated systems will be acting as a reason for low productivity level. People have a natural tendency to prioritize the task they like. So an employee who likes his job will naturally put his job ahead of his other desires or priorities. A dissatisfied employee will be an unproductive one for the organization. Employees' personal problems can also be a reason for his or her low productivity contribution. If someone is stressed or someone is having poor health, then both of these situations will be contributing to lower levels of productivity. So all these reasons or causes should be taken into consideration in a very serious manner in order to avoid all kinds of hindrances towards a higher level of productivity achievement. Productivity versus value added. Productivity compares outputs with inputs. It's a measure of the rate at which the inputs are transformed into output. Whereas value added refers to the addition of value to the raw materials or intermediate goods by a firm by virtue of its productive activities. Alternatively, value added is defined as contribution of company to the current flow of goods and services. Production process adds value to intermediate goods with the help of factors of production. Thus, productivity and value added both are interconnected. We can measure the level of productivity by using any of the value added ratios such as sales per employee ratio, labor cost to value added ratio, profit before tax to employee ratio, labor cost to sales ratio, and value added to employee ratio. So whenever the productivity increases, the value added element will also goes for a higher level. That is, value added is equal to total revenue minus cost of purchase materials, services, utilities, etc. That is, cost of intermediate goods. So the difference between the total revenue and cost of intermediate goods will be giving as the value of value added. Say for example, If ABC Limited buys intermediate goods worth rupees 5,000 and sells its output for rupees 8,000, in this case, the value added by the ABC Limited in production is rupees 3,000. So this is how we will compute the element of value added, and this is the differentiation between the terminologies of productivity and value added. Productivity and quality. Quality is much different than the term or concept of productivity. Employees may be constantly attempting to be productive, but this does not mean that the results will be of good quality. Productivity is the relationship between the amount of output and the amount of input required to produce a particular product. If less raw materials and manpower are used to produce more of a product, then the productivity is considered to be high. Quality is the measure of a product's flawlessness and excellence. Quality experts such as Edwards Deming have stated that quality is positively associated with productivity because the quality of a product or service increases, there is less requirement for rectifying mistakes, and this will be leading to an improvement in productivity. However, many experts disagree with the point of view of Deming. Other experts believe that quality can only be increased through a process of TQM or total quality management that requires an overall systems and behaviors. TQM is a process that aims to improve productivity, quality, as well as customer satisfaction. Therefore, to increase both quality and productivity, an organization can use a process of continuous improvement that addresses both the goals simultaneously. Productivity and cost effectiveness are two very different things and often compete with each other. Improved productivity can come at the expense of cost effectiveness, and improved cost effectiveness can often reduce productivity. Productivity is the quantity of work produced by a team, business, or individual. Efficiency refers to the resources used to produce that work. So, the more effort, time, or raw materials required to do the work, the less efficient the process will be. Cost effectiveness can also be referred to the quality of the output. Thus, the explanation of productivity and cost effectiveness is actually the difference between quantity and quality. Higher productivity and cost effectiveness leads to higher profitability. Firms usually they try to get maximum output at minimum cost. Cost effectiveness results from using minimum inputs to obtain maximum output. When raw materials, labor, and other utilities are effectively used, the firms achieve cost effectiveness. In such firms, there are minimum waste in materials, workers are efficient and more productive, that is, idle time is less. There are no other wastages. Such firms achieve higher productivity with the element of cost effectiveness. Importance of human factor in productivity drive. The success of improving productivity depends upon the willing cooperation between the two wings of production, that is, capital and labor. The higher the cooperation between capital and labor, the greater will be the productivity. The importance of human factor in productivity improvement may be understood from the following points. Higher productivity requires mutual trust and cooperation between capital and labor wings. Workers' participation in management is a technique of productivity improvement. This technique gives the workers the feeling that they have a voice in the management of the organization. Productivity can be improved by the introduction of rationalization and automation. But workers may oppose rationalization and automation. Their resistance can be overcome by giving them the assurance that they will not be retrenched due to rationalization and automation. For improving productivity, it is necessary to improve the productivity of labor, capital, etc. Labor is an active factor, whereas all others are passive factors. But labor can make all other factors active. When all input factors become active, automatically the productivity will improve. Thus, a human factor is important in productivity improvement. For making the workers and productive, there should be a two-way communication system so that information to and from workers would reach both ends. Every effort should be made to motivate human beings, and steps may be taken to improve the morale of employees. When workers get job satisfaction, definitely productivity will improve. If labor turnover is high, then the productivity will decline. Finally, the company should have a suggestion scheme. The scheme should be kept open to all employees for making suggestions on work simplification, improvement of working conditions, or any other matter affecting the productivity of the company. Thus, the human factor has a tremendous role in productivity improvement as compared to other input factors. Productivity objectives. If a business does not have productivity objectives, then it does not have a direction. If a business does not have productivity measurement, then it does not have a proper control. Here we go with the key productivity objectives. The first one is to compare the effectiveness and efficiency of management. The next productivity objective is that to utilize the resources profitably. Another objective is that to achieve continuous productivity improvement. Another objective is that to make all resources more productive. The next objective is that to find opportunities for innovation in production process. The last key productivity objective is that to identify the most promising areas for productivity improvement. The next topic we are going to cover is the productivity plan. Management has to prepare a plan for productivity management. According to Paul J. Mayer, productivity is never an accident. It is always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. A productivity plan consists of a specific plan designed to improve productivity. An effective productivity plan addresses all areas that may potentially affect the overall productivity of an organization or individual. The organizational productivity plan typically addresses three main elements: operational planning, tactical planning, and strategic planning. Operational planning is defined as who, what, and when things need to be done. It should include the coordination of suppliers, vendors, materials, and day-to-day work activities to ensure workers have access to the resources necessary to do their jobs. It's essential to analyze how these elements affect productivity in order to determine how best to improve efficiency, thus boosting or increasing productivity. Tactical planning consists of systematically organizing and planning short-term business activities in a manner that is consistent with overall strategic goals. This element of productivity plan should specify clearly who is responsible for achieving the objectives of each of the three areas of productivity planning. Final one is the strategic planning, and strategic planning process consists of the development and implementation of policies and procedures designed to align day-to-day work activities, the routine activities, with the overall mission of the organization. Organizational leaders may begin their activity by setting objectives such as improving productivity, which help the business to carry out its mission. Managers then conduct an environmental plan such as a SWOT analysis in order to identify the strong areas, the weak areas, the opportunities, and the threats of a business concern. Leaders then develop and implement strategies to take advantage of the company's strengths and opportunities while combating its weaknesses and threats. So these three are the major elements of productivity plan. These are operational planning, tactical planning, and strategic planning. One more small topic is attached here with, that is individual productivity. Managers and supervisors may set productivity goals for individual workers or employees, as well as providing training to help these workers to improve their communications, to eliminate time wasters, and to manage their time wisely. Individual employees or workers may also choose to develop their own productivity plans to proactively improve personal productivity levels to better support the mission and vision of the organization. The next topic is productivity audit. A productivity audit determines management effectiveness and resource utilization efficiency and identifies the most promising areas for productivity improvement. It is the closest scrutiny and evaluation of standards, yardsticks for measurement, and comparison and actual input factor performances. There are basically three types of productivity audit, namely material productivity audit, labor productivity audit, and capital productivity audit. Material productivity audit seeks to examine and evaluate the productivity of materials, and this is done from a twin aspect, that is, obtaining more of a given output than before at the same cost of materials consumed, or obtaining a given output at lower cost of materials consumed than before. Labor productivity audit attempts to examine and evaluate the productivity of labor from again twin aspect basis, that is, obtaining the higher output at the same labor cost or obtaining the given output at lower labor cost than before. And the last one is capital productivity audit. This seeks to examine and evaluate the productivity of capital by analyzing the quantity produced and the amount of capital used in the course of production. Thus, a productivity audit questions the people and processes responsible for productive performance to determine which productivity related factors need much attention. And this is done to assess the efficiency and effectiveness of a company's existing resources usage. Advantages of productivity audit. Productivity audit helps to diagnose the operational weaknesses, if any, by a review of the organization's environment. It also helps to see whether the resources of the business flow into constructive, productive, and profitable channels. It enables to assess how far the measures and techniques adopted are effective in attaining the goals and objectives of the organization. It also helps the managers and staff of the organization to be more sensitive to their obligation towards achievement of productivity improvement. Productivity audit helps to identify the means for improving productivity even in operations where productivity is very difficult to measure. All these are the benefits or advantages of productivity audit. Productivity audit is not free from limitations or problems. So let's have a look on limitations or problems associated with productivity audit. Factorial inputs have got different units or yardsticks of measurement. Another problem is the interdependence of the different inputs and their integrated nature of work for the common final aim of productivity measurement. The interdependent functional relations of factorial productivity can be conceived of as a series of simultaneous equations with different variables. These variables are not only numerous, but also their mutual relationships are difficult to be precisely quantified, and thereby a mathematical solution is almost treated as an impossibility. And the last limitation is that an acceptable base for productivity comparison to ascertain productivity, increase or decrease, is difficult to determine. And audit in that sense considers subjective criteria. The last topic we are going to discuss is TPM, or Total Productivity Management. Total productivity management is concerned with identifying productivity problems and taking steps to solve these problems so as to improve the productivity continuously. Total in TPM stands for the need for effectively using all the company resources, and P stands for productivity, to increase the product power and enhance customer satisfaction. In the context of M, that is management, clear business direction, an integrated visible improvement plan, a consistent set of improvement strategies, and an appropriate performance measurement system. Altogether, it comes as TPM, or Total Productivity Management. How the productivity can be improved by way of TPM, by way of applying Total Productivity Management. This is explained through the following steps. First, we have to understand the strategic business, customer and employees context within which the improvement is to be made. After that, we have to follow the remaining three steps, namely now, how and where. Now starts with a realistic review of the current situation, including feedback, measurement, analysis, critique, comparison and evaluation. How? In that step, we have to define the steps involved in moving from the current situation to the desired future state, and then standardize to sustain the new levels. And finally, the stage of where. Develop a desired future state that embraces vision, purpose, goals, and aspirations. So these steps will lead us to an improvement in productivity by way of the application of Total Productivity Management. Thank you for watching.